off the pad and it triggers everybody in the world. Now then, crew, and welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. It's 2021. Yes, goodbye 2020. So, in readiness of getting this bike back on the road, one of the things we need to do, we've identified problems in the past with the wiring harness, specifically the primary circuit, the circuit that feeds the current to the primary side of the ignition coils. There was huge volt drops. And the aim is to increase the spark strength. It was pretty weak earlier on. We had problems with cold starting, specifically number 2 cylinder, which is a smidge down on compression, unfortunately. But I think that's down to the valve seat not sealing properly because the bike's been stood a long time. Now, we are going to be fitting, in a future video, not today, a couple of Dana ignition coils. Now these will obviously provide a much stronger spark, and in conjunction with these we're going to be also fitting the Dana electronic ignition system. So again, there's going to be a video covering the installation of that and taking out the old points and condensers. So the plan of attack is, and I have sort of brushed on this on the previous video covering this part of the repairs on the bike, is we're going to basically replace the wiring that forms the feed to the ignition switch and then through the kill switch and then down to the primary circuit of the current ignition coils. We're going to replace all that, but we're also going to provide a direct feed from battery positive to the ignition coils via a relay. So now the relay will be triggered by the ignition switch. When you key on to ignition on, the relay will energize and provide current to the primary side of the circuit. Now, the reason for this is the ignition switch was one of the points of high resistance. The contacts in there had badly burnt, and on these old Hondas, the full current of not just the ignition system but other systems on the bike all go through the switch, the little tiny contacts inside the ignition switch, and at the moment obviously the kill switch as well. And over time, you know, because of such high current, it damages the contacts. You get arcing and pitting and burning and stuff, and that increases the resistance. And as the resistance starts to increase, you know, current flow drops off, and we want to prevent that. We're trying to future-proof the bike and also minimize the volt drops in the circuit, providing current to the primary circuit, because basically more current into the primary, you know, the better the supply, then of course we're going to get a crisper spark, and that's the plan. So we have a relay. We're going to be installing that, and I picked up some nice heavy-duty wire, single core wire, to replace in the loom. So we're going to be cutting the loom open, and we're going to be basically taking out the old wiring, because, you know, it's what is it now? This is it's a K2, so what's that? 70s, I don't know, it's pretty old, and it's like a 30-year-old bike. We need to pull all that out and replace it. The other wiring for the other circuits, it's not the end of the world if the lights are a little bit more dull than they were when the bike was born. But for the ignition circuit, you know, especially because we're spending so much money on these really smart coils, we need to make sure we can provide them with a decent level of current. And, you know, wiring's cheap, it's just a bit of time, isn't it? So let's go back down to the wiring diagram that we did when we were inspecting the circuit, the original circuit for volt drops, and we'll superimpose onto that the additional circuit which we're going to use with the relay, and then you get a better idea of how we're going to accomplish the work on the bike. Right, here we go. Oakley dokley. Okay, so we've got battery positive. This is the current circuit. You might recognize this from previous. We've got the feed coming out from the battery positive, and it goes up to a fuse, and then basically we've got the ignition switch. So this wiring here obviously is a lot longer in the loom. This is just a diagram, so you can't go by, you know, it's not to scale, so to speak. So it goes through the ignition switch, and then the current then flows through the kill switch, and then it goes across to the ignition coil. So we're going to break that circuit about here, just before the ignition coil, actually in the headlight, because there's a wire that runs to the ignition coil from the back of the headlight, the cluster. And then we're going to tap in, and we're going to bring that down. So we'll kill that off. We're going to come down, and we've got a relay. So we'll draw a relay in a box. This is our new relay that we're going to be using, and we've got the trigger circuit, and we've got the switched circuit, the switched side of the relay. Okay, so when the ignition's on, this is going to be live, so we can come down here and we can plumb that straight into one side of the trigger circuit, and then the other side just needs to go to ground. And then whenever the ignition's turned on, this relay will energize and it will close the contacts. Now, the other side of the relay, obviously it needs to be fused, so we'll put in there, I don't know, maybe a 10 or a 15 amp fuse. We'll see what the current draw is once it is and adjust the fuse to suit. But we'll stick a fuse in there so we can draw a fuse. I'll bring it down here, look like this. Okay, there we go. Just to make the diagram a bit more complex. So we'll stick a fuse in there. Now the amperage we're not sure on just yet. We'll obviously have to select a fuse that's slightly larger. And then that can go up to battery positive. Now obviously this side here will just run across, and then it'll join onto the supply to the two coils. And that's it basically. Nice simple little additional part to the bike. And it'll mean that the wiring, the distance or the length of the wiring that makes up the primary circuit is A, a lot shorter, B, has a lot less components in it, and C, is much thicker wire. So we're going to get, ideally, the minimum level of volt drop we can get. So we get the maximum voltage drop across the primary winding, which is obviously what we want, because end of the day, that's the consumer. And the more voltage that gets, the more current that gets, the better the spark. Okay, so you've got a rough idea how things are going to work out. I think it's a pretty good plan, and I've put it out to a few other people that I work with, other mechanics, and they've all said, hey, that's a great idea. Because don't forget, on modern bikes, they don't run the current flow for the ignition system, as in the primary winding, the spark, you know. They don't run that through the ignition switch, or the kill switch for that matter. It's all done, you know, via relays and bits and pieces. You've got a main relay on the bike which would carry that current, and that's how they solve the problem of ignition switches, you know, regularly burning out and the contacts either melting or just over time they would just arc and become unreliable or not work at all. Sometimes they would go open circuit. In actual fact, when I turned this one on this morning, turned the ignition switch on, the ignition didn't come on. I had to turn it on and off a few times to clean the contacts, and then it finally put on the telltale lights. Now, I've spent a little bit of time digging around trying to put some stuff together to do this job. It's been quite difficult, you know, with workload and of course, you know, parts supply through the post at the moment is really, really slow. So that's the main reason why this project's taking a bit longer than what we planned. It's not a massive amount of work. It's just you need the parts to do it. We have got, and this is a pointing question, we have got a brand new ignition switch. That's the part number there, look. And it looks like the box is about as old as the bike is. So it's probably made the same time the bike was. It's been sat on a shelf over at Honda in Japan for quite some time. So I've got a brand new ignition switch here. So, you know, the plan is that the contacts in there are like new. And they won't get damaged now because the current flow is greatly reduced once this circuit's been altered. But the problem is it has the little brown plug, standard sort of Honda of that era ignition plug. Now, the loom, as you've seen in previous videos, has been butchered. Butchered is the right word. It's got chocolate blocks in there and all sorts. There's little, you know, screw connector blocks. So this, the other half, which will be the female of this, I suppose if you're looking at the plastic, or you could call it the male if you're looking at the pins, has disappeared. It's long gone. Somebody snipped it off and they've basically just, you know, cut this one off on the original ignition switch and just wired it in direct using some pretty bad connectors, to be honest. So I can't install the new ignition switch until, unfortunately, a friend of mine, Simon Rawle, hello Simon, Simon has passed on a link where I can actually obtain brand new connectors, pairs of connectors online from a company, I forget the name of the company, but a company in the UK. I'll put a link in the description, and so I'll be able to reinstall the correct connector on the loom side and put it all back to original. That's the plan, but I don't know how long that will take to arrive from the UK, but it doesn't really matter. We're not in a huge rush to get this bike done now. It's the heat's sort of off. I think Alan was hoping to go riding at Christmas. I told him a few months ago it really wasn't going to happen. Well, actually, my response was, well, which Christmas are you talking about? And he got the message from there. I'd love to have the bike done now, to be honest, but it's just the way it is. Okay, so I think now we need to head over to the bike and start to disassemble the wiring harness, to dig our way in, cut off all the old insulation tape and loom tape and stuff around that harness, expose all the wiring, and then we can make a start replacing it. Okay, this is the feed to the ignition system, and it's currently, it doesn't actually come directly from battery positive, it's actually keyed in to the input of the starter solenoid. And I need to get this boot pushed back, and I can't do that because somebody's fitted an additional wire, and I don't know what this wire's for, to be honest. So we're going to need to remove that M8 nut off the post, move this out of the way, and then we can push that boot back and take a look and see how this red wire is connected. I think it's going to be crimped. If it is, we'll just snip it off and we'll use a ring terminal off the post, similar to how they've done this one. But we won't feed it through the side. We're going to run it right through and tidy all this up because it shouldn't be like that. It's a bit crappy, isn't it, to be honest? Right, first job, disconnect the power. We know it's still powered up because our test light lights up. So we've got power there, which, you know, we need to make sure, you know, everything's turned off. You don't want to be undoing bolts, especially a bolt like that right next to the frame where it could short out and cause a problem. Right, I will disconnect the battery. Right, test lights out of the way. Won't be doing that for a while. Multimeter out of the way. The way you disconnect the battery, always disconnect the negative first. This is only temporary, just for testing purposes, but this is the original battery for the bike and it has charged up really well. So okay, we'll stick him back in there, look, so we don't lose it. So now there's no power on the bike whatsoever. I stand corrected. I don't know why I said it was an 8mm. It's a 10mm nut, M6 thread. So we're just going to disconnect that. Now if you start the power on the bike and you caught it across here, it would crank the engine, which again would probably give you a bit of a shock. Startle, not an electrical shock, but it would certainly startle you because you won't be ready for it, most people. You know, and if the bike was in gear, whew, that wouldn't be good, would it? It would end in catastrophe. Okay, so we're going to pull that off there, and that's the wire we're interested in, and this is the oddball. So we're just going to pull the oddball through and get rid of that. I'm going to work out what the hell that does a bit later on. I have no idea at the moment. And then we're going to pull this back and just see how, in fact, where's my silicone spray? It's very useful for pushing boots back and reducing friction and stuff, is good old silicone spray. Wow, it's quite a thick boot. Come on, mister, you can do it. There we go. There we are, right. Okay, so we can see in there, it's already been, so that one's already been chopped out. That's what that bypass wire is for. Somebody's already replaced that because it's maybe got damaged or corroded or something, because that's the remnants of the crimped wire. So we're going to do the same thing with this wire. We're going to snip that off and we'll just go off the post with a ring. But I'm going to thread both of them through here rather than out the end here. That's actually quite bad. I've got some super glue. I'll try and glue that back up, because it's not the way to do it. You should always thread them through here. Very important. Although saying that, they've used quite a nice eyelet, and they've actually put some shrink wrap on there, some shrink on there, and some heat shrink on there as well, which is good. It's nice to see that someone's done a decent job with that. Hokey dokey, side cutters. Okay, we'll just stick him over there out of the way. That's that other one. There we go. Right, we're going to tidy that one up because it's not been cut off that well, to be fair. There we go. And we're going to snip. I don't want to cut any of the strands of the starter, the main starter wire. Right, so that's now tidied up and done. We've finished with that for now. Stick that out of the way. Okay. So this is the old fuse holder. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to delete this and fit a blade type fuse holder into it. And you can see where that pops into the loom just here. So we need to get rid of all these cable ties. I do like working on the old bikes. It brings back a lot of memories. My first motorcycle was a Honda CB750. Fantastic machine. Okay, so that's all of the cable ties out of the way for this section of the loom. So now it's time basically to start to cut open that loom. I think I might even just pull the whole thing through, to be honest, because it'd be a lot easier taping it back up. Although saying that, the loom tape is on order from the UK. It's not here yet, so I can't fully finish the loom. So maybe just for today, we'll cut that up and get rid of all the old tape. And this looks like insulation tape. It looks like somebody's already been in there over the years, which doesn't surprise me given the age of the bike. So we'll cut all that off, get rid of that. Yeah, it might still be easier to just take it off the bike, unplug everything. And the beauty is we're filming it all, so I can just look back on the video to see where bits and pieces go. Let's do that. Okay, so first job, I'm just going to be really aware of any wiring that's not labelled up. So this is one of the indicators, we've got a little orange band to an orange wire, that's fine. But, geez, look at the condition of that. So all these connectors need to be cleaned up or replaced, realistically, before the bike goes back. Now, this is a green to green, that's fine. It's had the bullet connector replaced, so again, that's a non-standard connector. I've got some much better ones than that, so I'll replace that. Plenty of spare wire as well, so that's good news. And we've got, look at this. We've got another orange connector going onto a light blue wire. So that's actually incorrect. They've used a left-hand indicator on the right-hand side of the bike. So, be aware of that. Pull out these are the green ones. Right, that'll come out of there. And then we've got brown, which is all the same colour both sides, and we've got green with a yellow tracer. So we can unplug that one as well. Fun and games. Right, so that's everything to the tail lights, or the rear lights, should I say. Now there is a little earth strap under here. Let's get that one out of the way next. Lurking underneath the seat lock by the looks of it. See if we can get in there and get that cranked up. Oh, it wasn't very tight either. Jeez. Oh, sorry, camera. And when you're doing this kind of, making these videos, it takes so much longer to do jobs than it would do if you were just doing the work and not having to film it, to be fair. I don't think there's a nut behind there. No, it's threaded. It's captive, which is good. But it's amazing actually how many of these CB750s are still on the road in collectors, like, you know, people's collections and stuff. I came across one, like an orangey one, over in Napier a few weeks ago. Very tidy machine, still on the road. It's just going for a warrant of fitness. Looks like the chap that owned it was getting it ready for the summer so he could ride it around again. But it's surprising to see how motorcycles have evolved over the last sort of 30 years. They're quite put together quite differently now as they used to be. A lot less, there we go, look. A lot less user friendly or repair friendly nowadays. Just going to stick that back in there for now so we don't lose it. Give him a little twizzle. There, so that's a bit like a hidden earth. You've got to remember that that's there. Right, what else have we got? Okay, fuse holders done. Starter solenoid I've already unplugged. That was the yellow with the red tracer and the black. That's the trigger circuit on the starter solenoid. We've got the reg rectifier unit. Now this is bound to be changed over the years, so I'll just unplug that. One. These are all yellows from the stator. 3. Doesn't matter which way around they go, irrelevant. So we've unplugged those, and then we've got green, which I think is battery negative on these Hondas, and we've got the red going to a red with a white tracer, so we'll unplug that. Right, that's the reg rectifier done. We've also got this, and it's got RE55 on it. Not entirely sure what that is. Happy to admit that. I'm sure the service manual will tell me, and I will have a look at some point. Just want to take it off the frame for a second because it's got 2 wires going to it. One's black and one's white. I don't know how well labelled up they are. Oh, come back bolt. Okay, we've got another ground green going onto there as well, look. Straight onto the casing. This doesn't look original, by the way. Oh, right, so what have we got? No, like I thought, there's definitely no... There's absolutely no indication of what wire goes where on there. Oh, on the front, here we are, look. It's got DF and D+. So I'm just going to label it up with a pen so I know which is which for when I put it back together again. Okay, W for white. And this side is B for black. I reckon that'll work, don't you? It's pretty fail-safe. Doing this kind of stuff, you know, just taking a bit of time when you're taking things apart to take note of where the wires go can save you an awful lot of problems further down the line. Right, we'll put that in the little parts box for now. Okay, so all of that now, I think, is unplugged. Yes, it is. So we can just thread that all the way through the loom, if it'll fit, all the way through the frame, up to the ignition switch, and then we can basically make a start cutting off all the insulation. We need to start here, all the way through to the ignition switch, so about 2 foot in length. Right, see how successful this is going to... Oh, hang on, we've got one more thing to unplug. Yes, we've got the reg rectifier unit. No, so the... no, this is the engine loom, actually. So this will have the stator wires on it. You see those 3 stator wires there? Jeez. And probably a neutral switch. We've also got that little blue wire there, like with a red tracer, and it's actually... The insulation is so old, it's cracked. Can you see that really light blue bit there? You can actually see the wiring inside, so I've got that to repair as well. All these little jobs that crop up, but it's alright, it's all part of the fun. Okay, so we're going to try and feed that through. Oh, we've got some more wires going off down the right hand side of the bike. Geez, let's go take a look at that. Now, just looking at the wiring harness, it runs behind this big oil tank. So what we're going to need to do is just undo the 3 bolts, let that swing down a little bit, then we can gain access to see where that loom connects to. Sometimes it's just easier than trying to fight your way in. Right. Oh, it's not captive on that one. Where's me 10mm spanner? Well, that's not a good sign. That bolt is covered in oil. We haven't got a leak anywhere. Right, last one. So obviously at some point that bottom thread, I think, has been stripped. Right, so that's what we're after. There we go, look. And we have the two wires which go to the ignition points. We've got the blue and the yellow. And I do remember pulling that out by accident. It's one of the connections that I never actually checked in the original video because I didn't realize there was a separate connector there, but the whole system was tested. So it was included in the volt drops, but it wasn't tested individually. And I think all we've got left then, yes, is the brake light switch, which is these two connectors here, so that's pretty easy. Sorry you can't see too well. Now let's bring you around a little bit. There you go, look. So we'll just get those unplugged if we can. There we go. Oh, geez, that wasn't particularly well plugged in. Okay, so we cut that. There we go. Get rid of that one. That wasn't too bad actually, just a short length. Okay, let's pull that through there. Right, so I'm just going to stick these bolts back in, or at least a couple of them for now, just to hold that tank in place. We'll do the two top ones because they're the easiest. Jeez, all this work just takes some tape off a loom. Okay, well, I think we're sort of in luck. That's the right hand side loom through. Just see what else we've got going on here. There's quite a lot to wiggle through, but I reckon we can get through there. Okay, there we go. Brilliant. Right, one more bit. Poor Alan's going to be getting really worried now, and he's taking his prized possession apart. Like I say, as long as you document where stuff comes from, it makes it a lot easier putting it back on. And looking in the service manual to find exactly how the wiring harness is laid, and it's pretty easy on this particular bike, but on some bikes it's pretty critical. Here's the positioning of the loom, and if you don't, the manuals sometimes are not the greatest. We can get rid of that now. Don't need that. Right, we've done it. So we can lay that back over the top, and we can make a start digging our way through that insulation. Okay, so our start point, our entry point, is just here where this red wire goes in. And like I said before, somebody's already been in this. This is not original taping, to be honest. So just very gingerly, I like to just go in. And I really don't like taking wiring harnesses apart, but sometimes you really don't have a choice. It's just got to be done. Sure, you could just lay another wire over the top, but that's not the right way of doing it, is it? It really isn't. You've got to be so careful you don't damage the other wiring underneath. But if you've got a feel for it, you're usually pretty okay, to be honest. You say that, I'm going to skin a wire in a minute. Most of what I just did was off camera. Sorry, people. Right, I'll try and repeat a few bits. So what I'm looking for is, you can see there's a wire there, there's a ridge, so there's going to be a little valley in there, so that's probably the best place to run the blade. Like I say, this is definitely not original. Doesn't feel very original. If I do make any damage to any of the wires, I will obviously inspect the whole thing before I put it all back together again and make any repairs. But it's not often that I damage wires. You just got to take it nice and gentle, that's all. Just dig your way in slowly. These junctions are always a bit of a pain. What I don't want to do is draw blood. That would be bad. There we go, look. Because we're replacing this wire, I don't mind giving it a pull and using it a bit like a cheese slicer, you know, cheese wire. It can be sacrificial on this one, can't it? There we go. The wire at the moment's spiralling around, so I can't just really follow a particular route. There we go. Just not trying to go too deep at the moment. There we go, you see? Perfect. Can't see any damage anywhere, which is good. Well, all the neighbours have given up cutting their grass. And water blasting and things. That's brilliant. Well done, neighbours. Well, we're not too far off. We're about, I would say about halfway. So we'll just keep moseying along. I was watching Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman's Long Way Up last night on Apple TV. Very good. I do think the old electric motorcycles have definitely got a place in this world. Probably not in my garage for many, many more years to come. But certainly the next generation, for sure. What have we got here, look? What's this? Is it some secret? Is it the part number label that I've just cut straight through because somebody's taped over the top? I think it could be. Let's have a look. What is going on here? Ah, we've got an additional. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yes, there, look. The part number of the wiring harness, which I've cut right down the middle of. Sorry, Alan. It's not quite as original as it used to be. But nobody knew it was there. It's alright. There could be all sorts of bodges in here now, couldn't there? Right, we're really not far off at all. There's Mr. Ignition switch. Super. There we go. We are through. Nasty bit of wiring is out of the way. Honestly, who said doing wiring was a clean job? Look at the state of my fingers. It's amazing how much grime is on these old bikes, even if they're being cleaned. Right, so we can just disconnect that for now. This is one of the chocolate blocks that I was on about, that somebody's used as a repair. If you see a motorcycle, or a car for that matter, with this kind of connector on it, run a mile. It's probably an indication there's quite a few more bodges on the bike. You just don't use this kind of stuff. Unless it's an emergency, you know, that's obviously not a problem, but long term, not good. Very exposed. They're not sealed at all, these things. Right, it's out. That's probably the longest section of offending wire. Doesn't look horrendous in bad condition, but it is starting to corrode. It's got lots of, you know, joints in it. I think there's a join in there. What kind of join that is? Let's have a little look. Oh, lovely. Beautiful bit of soldering. Well done, mate. Good job. And then in here, I think this is done by the chap that did a slightly tidier job. Obviously that's got heat shrink in it. Let's have a little look inside and see what kind of job he did with the joint. Hee hee. I always like these kind of autopsies to see how other people have done things. Now, I've always been told not to use solder. I have used solder a lot, but viewers get really upset. There you go, look, that's his joint, where he's pushed them both together and soldered, which is obviously a million times better than that one. But it still involves solder, and I'm told that over time the solder can crack, and then you can get a loose joint. Far better to crimp them in a loom. So I'm told. So if you remember back to the start of the video, if you've watched the whole thing, it always surprises me how many people skip through videos just to watch certain parts. Usually when I'm watching a YouTube video, I watch it from start to finish. But maybe that's just, you know, my age group, I don't know. Anyway, so that's the original wire, and that's what we're going to upgrade it to. Now also, not only that, but this piece of wire now won't be carrying all the current that it was originally. We're basically removing the current supplied to the primary winding, so it's going to be so much better for the bike. The lights and stuff should be a bit brighter as well. Just to show you the actual difference in section of the wire, I'll just strip the ends off. So there you go, like you can see as a comparison. Oh, well done camera for focusing, looks pretty good. You can see that it's probably about, I would say, probably if not twice, maybe 3 times the section. Pretty good. I don't know what it is. It was just on a shelf. It's all the guy had. I'm hoping I've got enough as well. There's probably, what we got? We've got 1, 2, maybe 2.5 meters. Because I've already used some for something else. Of course, you can't have things lying around the workshop very long, and then you go, oh, I'll just borrow a bit of that. Anyway, so we've got to fit a fuse at the end with a blade type fuse. So I've got to find where my fuse holders are. All right, back in a minute. Ta-da! Look at that. Right. Fuse holders. These have been in stock all the way from England. So 12 years here in New Zealand. And they're probably, you know, in stock in the UK for a while. So there you go, look. Pretty old. That's the part number. I do like Durite stuff. Big fan, actually. And not too long ago, I bought one of these. And we can actually use this in the video later on, or in one of the future videos. It's an inductive ammeter, so I could use that, once all the coils are plumbed up and everything, I could use that to determine the fuse size needed. Pretty cool. Not used it yet. It does need to be calibrated though. It's a little bit off, isn't it? What have we got there? I think we're running about 6 amps at the moment. Terrible. It must have had a bit of a knock in the post. Okay, well, do I destroy the bag? No, I shouldn't destroy the bag, should I? Where's my little blade gone? There he is. I'll make an incision. So I can just remove one. Right, so this is going to be the inline fuse holder. There we go, look. And it's of the blade type. And it says the maximum it can cope with is 30 amps. Well, we won't need a 30 amp fuse in there. So very cool. And I used to use these a lot on the little Suzuki Jeeps and stuff when we used to put spotlights and bits and pieces on. They are very, very good, actually. They even pre-cut the insulation for you to strip back so you can connect it to something. That's thinking about your customer, isn't it? So you can do it out in the field nice and easy. Okay, and the wire section, just pulling that off there, it's pretty similar in section, to be honest. If anything, our black wire is slightly larger. Focus, there we go, look. Doesn't like focusing sometimes, does it? There we are. So yeah, well, actually, I would say our black wire is slightly larger. This wire is rated probably for 40 amps. This one's rated for 30. So we're way above what the bike really needs, which means we're going to have minimum volt drop, and that's what it's all about. Okay, so I've got to connect that to the end of this wire. Here we go. Right, said Fred. So this is the short length of the heavy positive cable that goes from battery positive to that starter solenoid positive post, the input post. So in the aims of being tidy, we need to thread that through there and then fit the eyelet on this side, because we'll never get it through there very well. We could force it through, but you know, let's try and be sensible about this. Much easier to do it now when it's not got the eyelet on. Right, so one eyelet, and then we've also got the little insulation piece here as well. This is, it might need to be cut, I don't know, we'll see how we get on, but a bit of silicone spray might help us to whittle that down there, possibly. Look at that, we might be in luck. We might just, yes, perfect. Okay, so now we can get our eyelets. Now I would suggest that's the perfect length. Let's get my little pliers. Now, do we need to splay that a bit more? Because it's quite a beefy wire, isn't it? Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got our official terminal pliers. And let's go with blue, I think. Jeez! Right. It's pretty tidy. I like that. Now we've got to do that one, so we'll be using the yellow one for that one, because it is quite chunky wire. There we go. I don't think the blue's going to fit. We'll give it a try. Oh, yeah. Right, there we go. So that's a really good connection. Quite happy with that. There's no solder in sight, so some of the viewers will be very happy about that. And then we can just push that back over there again. He says, not too far. There we go. I reckon that'll work just fine. It looks sort of quite original, doesn't it? Shame it's not red, but hey, not the end of the world. Okay, now on this end, this is what we need to connect to our new red cable. Now I know it's black, but that's just the way it is, unfortunately. They didn't have any red, so we can pull that end piece off there. And now we need, what should we use? We'll always have the fully insulated on the positive side, so we need this one, the female, down there. This will be fun. My eyesight's terrible these days. Is that going to go over? Oh yes, look at that. Can't beat a little bit of silicone spray. It makes life so much easier. Right, now we need the female. Now the reason why I always put the female on is because this one's fully insulated, so when it's unplugged it's not going to short it out on the frame for any reason in the future. Let's just go a bit more. There we go. Right. Are we still on camera? Probably not. Useless at the moment. Right. Oh, yep, right way up. Nearly got it wrong. That's one. And we'll do the same as we did last time. We'll do the yellow one first, because it's so big. And then we'll just finish it off with the blue. Actually, I think the yellow's probably just better on its own. There we go. It just seems to deform it too much. There we are. So that's pretty tidy. Quite happy with that. And now we can just twizzle down the insulator. Oh, beautiful job. Right. So all that's left to do now, this might be a bit more tricky, I think, because this is even bigger wire. We've got to try and get that insulator over there. Now you can, by the looks of this, there are two different, there's two different diameters inside, and you can chop them down if need be, but I think we could maybe just stretch it on a screwdriver first before we slide it down. That might work. there goes the air compressor. Right, not sure how successful this is going to be, but we'll give it a try. See, it will go that big. As you can see on there, look. Right, bit of spray on the wire. Let's give it a go. I think I might need to just trim that end off first. And then we can re-trim it once it's done, can't we? Otherwise we're going to be chasing bits of wire. Oh, we're on. Look at that. Good job. Almost. Sorry, camera. There we are. Right. So now we can strip that wire again. There we go. And where's our little connector gone? There he is. This could be a big ask for these little connectors. Yeah, where's my flat screwdriver? Just going to open him up a little bit. See if that's going to work. That's about as good as we're going to get. I really need to open these up as well, don't I? We're pushing the boundaries here with this wire. See if that's going to work. I'm sure there's bigger connectors for this wire, but it's all I've got. Well, I think that's pretty good actually. We've only got a couple of strands that are not quite where they need to be. We can tuck those in. Alright. Right, where's my crimping pliers? Don't look too closely on this one. That's one. Right, let's see if we can just get this one nipped up a little bit before we start. There we go. This has got to be the yellow. There we go. Right. Not bad, I thought, actually. That was a fair effort. Okay, so we just got to get that little boot back over there again now. There we go. Phew, that was tough. So the next job is we can connect these two together. There we go, click. All nicely sealed up with a bit of silicone in there as well. Can't go wrong. Very, very happy with that. There you go, I'll give you a little zoom in. Look at that. Quite tidy, I think, really. Right, so I'm just going to pop this back on the terminal just to hold it really more than anything else. It's not there permanently. It's just to hold it all because there's a bit of weight to it. And we'll stick the nut back on. There's still that other wire to fit as well at some point, but it doesn't need to go on at the moment. There we go. First job really is to remove all the rest of this old harness before we start. So where's my knife? Okay, are we on camera? We are on camera. That's amazing. There we go, being very careful not to catch wires and stuff, because we don't want to be causing more damage than what we're trying to fix. There we go. No wires in here, it's just the outer. Sharp blade today. Right, we'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay. I reckon that's going to work. Right, one last bit to tidy up. Oh, sounds like the washing machine's about finished. Super spin cycle. There we go, I'll just get rid of that bit. Fantastic. Right, so I'm just going to get a little bit of insulation tape, and we're going to run this. I want to leave a bit of slack on it. I don't want things to be too tight. So I think, judging me where all the connectors were and stuff, that should work out just fine. So we're going to pop a bit of tape around there just to hold that in place. Now we have got, don't forget, another wire coming back, which is going to be, it's going to be the positive side of the trigger circuit on the relay. So we're just going to put a few bits of tape on. Doesn't matter if the second one just, you know, runs over the top of it. And like I said before, the proper loom tape, because I won't be using insulation tape to wrap the whole thing up. I'm going to use proper loom tape. That hopefully will be arriving in a few weeks. But the company that's selling it in the UK, because of all the COVID problems in England, they've suspended dispatch of any orders. So it's just going to have to wait a little bit. I'll make sure we've got enough free when it's all taped up. I don't want it to be too tight. The idea is not to shorten the loom down. Right, not far off. Okay. Stick another one on there. This is also going to just to help keep the loom's shape as well, now that all the tape's out of the way. Excellent stuff. So now we can cut this down because I know where it finishes. Okay, so remember, this is going to basically connect to the ignition, and it's going to connect on that red wire. Now these plugs are all going to get changed because this is knackered. We've got a new one I showed you at the start of the video, and there's the proper Honda brown plug there. So give ourselves a little bit of spare. I think we can cut it probably about there. There we go. Done. So that's our feed from basically battery positive via the fuse to the ignition. It's replaced that old red wire. Now we've also got then the switched outside circuit. Basically, you know, the red comes in and we've got a wire going out. I think it's black from memory. We need to go and check the diagram, and that then runs off into the back of the headlight. So we now need to replace that part. Before we carry on, I'm just going to label this one up because it's all going to end up being black. And that one is plus 12 volts from the battery, basically. So we know where that's coming from. Because, you know, you won't be able to follow the wire once it's all taped up. Okay, so the black is the output. Just check the diagram. And it goes up. And it looks to me like underneath the insulation tape that I've just put on, there is a joiner. So we need to basically go after that joiner next. So I'll just move that down a little bit out of the way. just for now. There we go. We can get rid of that bit of wire. That can just go back over there for now. Okay, so we've got our black, oh no, there you are, look, our black wire. Sorry, it just kinked over. Where does it go? Where does it go? It looks like there'll be a lot of blacks here. Yes, there he is. So if we unplug or unscrew from our little chocolate block, look at this. Oh man, seriously? Oh, that's a good bit of soldering. Look at that. That is phenomenal. Wow. I wonder who did that. It sure as hell wasn't me. Right, I think we'll just snip that off. We don't need that. Here we go. Nice. Okay, so now we can thread this black through and just get it out of the main loom so we can see what's going on. Wires everywhere. There we go, look. Much better. Okay, so that connects. We've got a black going back. We've got two blacks going forwards. Okay, total of 4 wires. Right, let's go and take another look at the diagram and see what the volt drops were like from this point going up, because that connection looked terrible. So we've got the ignition switch, we replaced the fuse and the wiring up to the ignition switch. We know that all that's good. There's going to be a nice new ignition switch getting fitted. Now the black wire that we're looking at now is from the ignition switch up to, well, basically the back of the headlight cluster, where all the wires join up behind the headlight. And that section of black wire only had 0.03 of a volt drop, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not going to bother replacing that because there's just no point. It's in good nick. The kill switch is a major issue. I'm not buying a new one of those. That just needs to be cleaned up, and that'll be covered on a separate video. It's a job in itself, to be fair, and it's not really wiring. It's a different task. Now the wiring from the kill switch, which would originally, it runs directly to coil primary, had a 0.04 volt drop. So again, I'm going to leave that section alone. I don't see any point in replacing it. It looks to be in good condition. However, we need to tee into that. We need to break that circuit and run a cable, not heavy duty because it's only the trigger circuit. We need to run a cable down to the positive side of the trigger circuit on the relay, and we need to mount the relay. So let's dig into the headlight and try and pick up that junction there, look. Now the most important part of this is not to drop the headlight. That would be very, very bad. Right, last one. This is the critical one now. There we go. Right, we'll just whoa, that's loose. Holy moly. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Now, I suspect there's quite a few problems in this wiring, and now's the perfect opportunity for me to go through it and try and tidy everything up. There's a lot of corrosion on the connections. So to do that properly and to really be able to work on the wiring, I need to remove this headlight dome, the back piece. And to do that, I've got to remove the front indicators. Now, one thing I have spotted is there's a bit of yellow wire here that's been used as a ground, which sticks into the green. And we know that green is an earth on these bikes, so that really should be green and not yellow. So somebody's just used a bit of wire that's kicking around to fix that problem. So I'll replace that with some green as well. Black with the blue band there, look, is obviously for the indicator power feed in. So we're going to unplug that for now. I've got to unplug it. I don't want to keep unplugging stuff, but it's the way it is. And on this side we should have an orange. Yes, there we go. Look, can you see that under there? We've got the orange, and I can unplug that one. There we go. I don't need to unplug the earths, I don't think, because they will just come off when I undo the bolts. Nuts. There we go. So is that going to come out of there? Yeah, I think it is. Oh, it's been soldered onto a washer. Nice. So hopefully we can just thread that through there. That's not going to fit through there, is it? Maybe it will fit. It will. There we go. Right, that's one indicator out of the way. Okay. So we can now just disassemble that. Keep those somewhere very safe because, of course, they've got the hole down the middle. Right, now for this side. Getting a bit twisted up here. Let's twizzle the indicator a bit. There we go. Unfortunately, to do one job, you've got to do other jobs as well, and that's just the nature of the game with the old bikes, isn't it? Right, so let's see if we can get that bolt taken off again. Must be a tight fit through there. It is. Okay. Get rid of that. Right, now we can remove the indicator itself. Right. Now, very carefully, I just want to thread through all the wiring back through the hole at the back. So I'm going to just... That's going to take a while. Let me do that. Well, believe it or not, that turned out to be a lot easier than what I originally thought it was going to be. Otherwise, I'd have put it on camera for you. So we're looking for a black. It's going to be coming up on this, the main loom. There we are, look, right. Oh, fantastic. I've even labelled them up previously. Kill switch closed circuit in the on position. So it makes the circuit when it's turned on. So that's the kill switch. So we're going to unplug that. Okay. Where's the other half? There it is. Right. So that's the one that goes to the coil. So this, instead of going to the coil, needs to go to our relay. So I'm going to unplug that. That wire there is now redundant. We don't need that. Now, I'll leave it there just in case someone wants to put the bike back to standard at some point, but this is what we need to go for. So we need to run a wire from here all the way back to basically the battery box where the relay is going to be housed. Right, I'm just going to find some wire. Okay, now remember the trigger side of the relay is the low current side, so it doesn't need a big thick wire. When I was at the wire shop, they didn't have a lot of stuff left, to be fair. I think this year's pandemic has caused some problems. But I did pick up some sort of, I think it's 7-core cable. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it is. It's 7-core cable for basically trailer wiring. So I'm going to pull this apart and we'll choose a colour. That should do the trick. So have you decided what colour you want yet? I have no idea. Oh, that's better. That was a good one. I like that bit. Well, that was immense amounts of fun, wasn't it? So, what colour should we use? Yellow? We can't use green. Is there much yellow on there? There is. There's quite a few yellows. Blues. I can see a blue. Don't think it matters too much, does it really? Let's use blue. Blue's pretty cool. So this blue wire is going to run back to the relay trigger side circuit. It'll provide a positive voltage, and then obviously on the other side of the trigger circuit we'll put down to ground. There's plenty of little earths in that area, isn't there, so we can use one of those. So whenever the ignition is turned on, it will trigger that relay, and then on the load side of the relay we'll then provide another fuse pickup, and we're going to run that essentially from the relay directly to both primary windings on the two coils, and that's it. It'll be done, which will be great because then I can have some lunch. Well, actually I could have, oh no, I had some toast. I have had some breakfast, which is most unlike me. Right, is that going to come out? Oh, there it is. Excellent. Got all that spare wire, which I'm sure we'll be using some more of. Okay, so we need to put, what was it? We need to put a male end on here, and then it's going to plug into that black wire with a white tracer, which comes down from the kill switch. Easy. Right, said Fred. Just zoom you out a little bit, I think. There we go. Okay, because I always go off camera otherwise, it's too bloody close. Okay. You see, normal size wiring again. Right, we'll just thread him down there. No need for any silicone on this one. Just going to double that over a little bit because it's quite thin, isn't it? There we go. And we'll stick him in there. Lovely jubbly. I do like these little connectors. I only got this kit, well I actually bought this kit specifically for this job, to be fair, because my old kit was, well, it's pretty buggered, to be honest. There wasn't a lot left. Right, one. Let's go with yellow first, just to start it off. In fact, I think yellow's the best. Let's stick with yellow. Right. There we go. Not a bad job, eh? Right, back to the bike. Slight change of plan just to make life a bit easier. We're going to leave that one connected up, and we're going to connect it at where it breaks out of the loom for the actual coil. So we're going to leave that alone for now, because it means untaping all of this, and I just don't want to go there today, to be honest. But you could do that if you really, really wanted to. Right, to the coils. Okay, so this is basically this is the other end of that black wire with a white tracer. It comes down this part of the loom, comes to here, and then it branches back up. So what we can do is we can basically disconnect that. We can cut into the loom back here, so we can unplug all of these actually. What else have we got plugged in? There we are, we'll have that one unplugged. Okay, so we've got all of this. We're still on camera? We are. So what we want is that black wire with a white tracer. So I'm going to cut this bit of loom back. We're going to extract that. This connector is completely shot, by the way. That's why we're not using that. It's amazing when you start pulling harnesses apart what gremlins you find lurking beneath the insulation. There can be some pretty impressive repairs, that's for sure. Okay, we can leave that little bit of insulation at the top for now, the loom tape. Wow, what's going on here? All sorts of black. Oh, look at that. We found another joint. I have no idea why we found a joint or why there is a joint there, but we'll have a look. Almost looks original, to be fair. Right, so I'm just going to put a bit of insulation tape around there to keep the shape of the loom. A bit of new stuff. And then we'll have a little look at that wire. See what's been going on. There we go. Right. So all of that can stay where it is for now. This is what I'm interested in. Doesn't look original, sorry to say. Oh, lovely. Another, oh, and the wires, that's just a stray from somewhere else. Okay, so we've found another joint. And that, ooh, that's a hell of a zoom, isn't it? That is definitely not factory. You can't tell me some Japanese guy has gone home happy after doing that. There is no way somebody's done that. So let's get rid of that with the right side of the snippers. Sorry, Eric. Right, we just eliminated another 12 inches of bloody wire out of the circuit that we don't need. Because, you know, the more wire you have, the more volt drop you get. So we've got this particular wire here. This is the one that runs from the inside the headlight, from the kill switch. It runs down here and pops out just here. So in all intents and purposes, we just need to extend that wire back to the relay. And realistically, we don't really need to have a plug on it, in all honesty, because it's going to sit inside the loom. So we need to just solder that up, bit of heat shrink, and away we go. Although, if somebody else works on the bike, they aren't going to know that that changes. So maybe we'll just pop it out of the loom, and we will use a connector. And then they can see that the black with the white tracer changes to blue. That's a good idea. I'll do that. That's going to help somebody one day. Because I probably won't be working on this bike after this lot, to be fair. Somebody else will get a chance to have a bit of fun with it. So we'll do that. We'll just clean that up. This is still shiny. Okay, so this does not need to go up there, so we can get rid of that bit of tape that I just put on. Pull it through there. Sometimes you just got to change your plan a little bit as you go along, aren't you? Haven't you, really? Okay, so that's going to run down there. This wants some more tape on it to keep the shape, just a little bit. There we go. Right, so what we'll do is we'll just stick a bit of tape around there to hold all that together. These are only temporary, by the way. It just helps to keep things neat. You know, when you're working on it, you don't want it to end up being a big cluster or bird's nest of wiring, do you? Okay, so that's going to pop out of the loom, as is that one. So we need to put a female connector on here. So we'll just bend that over a little bit to give us some meat to go at. Cool. I might just give that wire a bit of a clean, actually. It's quite sticky. Right, bit of brake clean. Can't beat brake cleaner, can you? That's much better. It's all sticky and horrible. Right, we get some connectors. A little bit of silicone spray. There we go. Right, we'll get the insulator on first. There we go. Other way up, Andy. Onto the blue. Has to be blue, really, to get it tight enough. There we go. And then for this one. I reckon that's alright, isn't it? Pretty good. Right, where's our blue wire gone? There it is. There we go, it's well insulated now. There's a good overlap on the plug. So I'm just going to, it's like I said, that's going to stay outside the loom, is that connector. I want people to know that what's going on with this this wiring, because it's not standard anymore. There we go. And then of course that blue wire will then just be taped into the loom as normal. Super. Right, so I'm going to stick a few more bits of tape around here. Just sort of tuck it all in and keep it tidy, just so we know how it's going to lay when it's all done, once that loom tape turns up. Now don't forget, there's still going to be one more heavy cable, or one more cable running back to the coils, which is going to be the same, made of the same stuff as this black cable used earlier on, and that's going to be carrying the current to the primary circuit. Pretty cool. Okay, so we now need to locate our relay. Now there seems to be quite a bit of room behind this RE55, whatever it is. I haven't even checked yet. So I think our relay would sit quite nicely on the back of the battery box just here. Right, back to the bench. Okay, so we have here, the part number is a 3076 from Hella, and it's a relay with bracket, 4-pin, 12 volt, 25 amp fuse. So it's got an integral fuse to it, even better, which means we don't need to put another inline fuse in the circuit. Even honestly, I do things for a reason, don't I? Okay, so wiring diagram. Normally it's on the relay. There we are, look. There's something to point with. Hopefully you can see this. There we are, look. Right, so we've got 86 and 85, which is the trigger circuit. Okay, that's the little coil of wire inside the relay, and there's a video on my YouTube channel covering how these relays work. And then we've got the load side of the circuit, which is 30 and 87. So the battery positive feed in connects to 30. It goes through the fuse, and then it goes through the relay switch and then out. So very important that you put your battery on 30, your battery supply on 30, and then out to the consumer is 87. So let's put those numbers on the diagram that we drew previously to make it nice and clear for you. Okay, so we don't need the fuse anymore because it's integral to the relay. What a bloke. Okay, so that's pin 30, that's power in, and then we've got power out to the consumer will be 87. That's the coil primary in this case. And then we've got 85 and 86 for the trigger side of the circuit. Doesn't matter which way around that's wired up, i.e. the current flow can be either way through that coil. Right, back to the bike. Let's get this back out of the way again for now. There we go. Right, it should fit just nicely about there. Cool. We need a hole. Right, there goes. Didn't really want to put a hole here, but anyway, not to worry. Sorry, Alan. I'm always in trouble with Alan. Right. There we go. Just give it a quick deburr. Beautiful. Oh, it's terrible on the other side. Can't get my drill in there though, so I have to do it by hand. That'll do. Good job. Right, next job is, we need a bit of paint on there, don't we? Otherwise it's going to rust. What have we got? Forge black high gloss. That'll work. Right, doesn't need much, just a little tiny squirt, I think. That'll do. Super. No runs. Oakley dokley. Right, now the bolt needs to go from the inside of the battery box to minimise the depth. In fact, I'm tempted not even to use a washer, to be fair. I just want it to be as close as I can, so it's not going to cause any harm to the battery. Now we'll stick that on. Now I've got to use a small washer on this side because there's some little strengthener bits in the plastic casting. That's just, right, I'll stick that on there. There we go. I reckon that's going to work just fine. And I want to keep the relay in the downwards position because I don't want it to get compromised with rainwater and stuff. But it should be reasonably well protected in here. There we go. Right, just temporarily I'm going to remove the reg rectifier unit. Just because it's sort of in the way for filming and things, so we'll just undo that one bolt. Like I say, I'm pretty sure that this is not the original one. Yes, clearly not original. Okay, so our relay, and we've now got the blue wire. So, just sort of positioning it gingerly. We want to be able to come down and then loop back up. So I would suggest that somewhere around about that length should do the trick. We'll just give it a slightly bit extra look. There we go. Always cut it down, can't we? Okay, so we're going to bring that wire down there and then connect it to one side of the trigger circuit. Don't make it too long, Andy. There we go. Right. Some people say you shouldn't even twist wires. Honestly, I mean, what can you do in this day and age? Okay, standard spade connector. Just going to bend that over on itself. Just gives it a bit more meat to crimp, doesn't it? That's how I do things. Okay, crimpy pliers. That one. That's that one. Actually very quick, isn't it, really? Right, you need to go on there. Oh jeez, don't do that. Oh, I see the problem. That's where we need to be, over that little tine. Perfect. Okay, so this needs to go on to, we can stick him on that one. I almost thought it had just triggered them, but it's not. It's just the paint on the back of the relay. Alright, this will all get tidied up in due course. This is just for proof of concept. Now we need an earth from the other side of the trigger relay, and we have an earth. There's an earth that sits on here, on this bolt, just behind the seat lock. So we're going to run a black wire, black being, well, oh man, on these things it's green, isn't it? Green is earth. So I'll run a green wire from there onto the relay, just to keep with Honda's wiring colours. Okay, so that earth point is just down there, like under the seat latch. So I'm gonna use a new bolt at some point, but this is just to get the length of the wire right. I'll stick that in there, and there is also that other ring terminal ground earth off the loom as well, which will go on once the loom's been, you know, wrapped up and everything. I just want to get the length of the wire right. Oh yeah, that'll do. So this green ground wire, earth wire, is going to run across here and then come down here with the blue, so we can sort of cut its length to about there. And again, we need one of those sort of standard spade terminals putting on, don't we? I will go and get one. Don't panic, I'm back. Okay, first job. As always, slide down the insulator, the little sleeve, because if you don't do it now, you ain't going to do it later on. Okay, kink that over a little bit. Pop him in there. Get our pliers. Make sure they're right way up. Yes, they are. Look at that. Almost professional. Almost. There's always a viewer out there that will tell me how unprofessional I am. That's alright. I don't mind. I'm constantly learning. So that's going to run down there. And it's going to connect to... Geez, which one was it? Right, little cheat. You can use your phone to see places that you can't see. So, can you see another second little white dot? It's on that rear one, isn't it? Down there. Little pointy stick, rather than a big chunky finger. It's on the... it's on that terminal, isn't it? Right at the back. Pretty sure it is. Yep, there he is, look. Perfect. So the other one goes on that terminal there. Honestly, phones are so useful. They really are. So we'll pop them on there, look. Lovely jubbly. And then once all this is all done, I'll tidy it all up, and all these wires will get taped up together and probably zip tied as well somewhere nice and neat, just running up there. Obviously we've got two more wires to go on there yet, haven't we? We've got the main battery feed, and we've also got the feed going out to the coils. So there'll be 4 wires all up, and there'll be 2 of those will be heavy, or the next 2 will be the thick gauge wires. Well, we're cooking on gas now. It's taken a while to get to this point, but we're not too far away. Only 2 more wires to basically make up and install. So we're back on that thick, heavy cable again now. And the first wire needs to go from that input stud on the starter solenoid, which is essentially battery positive, isn't it? It just keeps the battery tidy. Take it from there and then run it round to 30, the pin 30 on that 4-pin relay. So quite a short section. So the first thing we need to do is put an eyelet on there. And I'm going to have a hunt around, see if I can find a better eyelet that will work better with this thicker cable. Let's have a look, see what I've got. Well, there's some good news and there's some bad news. I have found a very short length of what seems to be about the same section cable, but in red. So to avoid confusion for the next person working on the bike, we'll use this bit between that starter solenoid pickup, you know, the input stud, down to the relay, just so it looks a bit, you know, a bit more as it should. Because this one that runs from the, was it 87 terminal on the relay through to the ignition coils, most of this is going to be hidden in the loom anyway, so it's not a huge problem. So let's get this installed first. We're going to need a ring terminal on one end to go onto the stud on the solenoid, and we're going to need a female spade terminal on the other. Not too sure on the exact length yet, so let's do the ring terminal first. God, it's going to be hard work making that fit. So close, but yet so bloody far. I really need some bigger connectors. I really need some bigger connectors. I've just used all my big connectors up, unfortunately. Every last one of them. I think I might have to solder this. because it's just too big for the connector. Sorry. But it is actually on an actual connector itself, so it's not like it's a wire-to-wire joint. So maybe you guys can let me off. Jeez. It's not pretty. It'll do. It has to do. It's all we have. Sometimes you just got to make it work. That'll do. That'll be alright, will that, grommet? Put something in your mouth, Andy, you can't talk. Donkey. Right. Let's get this threaded through before we forget. There we are. Perfect. So that's going to go on to that stud, which you can actually go on now if we want. Oh, didn't drop the nut. It's got to be a first. It's getting quite busy on this stud, isn't it? I had a crank nose start the other day, and it's because one of these was loose. It wasn't on this bike. I think we'll be alright. There seems to be just enough stud length left for that one more connector. Okay. Cool, yeah. It'll do for our test later on, won't it? Okay, so this now has to come down and connect to our relay. So is it going to be long enough to go over the top? Because this is all we have, just one piece. Okay, so they can all go that side of that bracket. Oh, hang on, let's just move this one. So it's running down the back. There we go. Let's get him down there out of the way. I always try to make wiring look as neat as possible. Sometimes it's not always very possible, but when it is possible, you try to do what you can, don't you? You know. Right, come on. That. Right, is that going to be long enough? Jeez, only just really. We can always swing it around on that mount, can't we? That'll work, that'll give us a lot more. If we twizzle that round, that's not going to harm anything else, I don't think. Because realistically that should be in there anyway. He can come round here. Yeah, I think we're on a winner there. I think we are. It's actually a lot neater. End of the day, it's all about keeping the cable lengths not stupid short, but you know, there's no point in having them excessively long if you can avoid it. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we need a female spade on the end of there again, don't we? Only bloody just. Honestly, very tight. Need to get some bigger ones for sure. Okay, so that one needs to go on to terminal 30 on the relay. So, if you remember, terminal 30 is that one, because it's 87 was the one that was coloured. Right, so that needs to go on there like that. There we go. Cool. We have one more wire to go. You know, as I make these videos and do these jobs, my workshop gets progressively more and more messy. There's stuff all over the floor, boxes of wire, there's terminals all over the place. Part of the fun, isn't it? Okay, so last section of the circuit to build now, which is between the relay, so terminal 87, the output from the relay, up to the basically where the ignition coils are. So we're going to use that black stuff again. So we're going to need a female spade on the end of the here. Here we go. And as if by magic, there it is. Right, back to the bike. Oakley. Right, so that can run down here with all the other wires. They'll all get tied up when the loom gets wrapped and everything. And, well, there's only one place it can go, isn't there? And that's on there, look. 87. Coolio. Right. I would like to pull these out now and just put a piece of insulation tape around all of them just to tie them all together. Make it look a little bit neater. And get them all out. There we go, look. Cool. Right, where's my insulting tape? Make sure there's no silicone on my fingers. Let's just crack a bit around there, look. There we go. Looking a bit neater now, isn't it? Now I know some of you are professional electricians out there and you'll say, Andy, you can do better than that, or you could do better than that. I'm sure you can. Absolutely sure you can. I'm not happy when the loom tape turns up, but it's also good to have the loom exposed while I'm just doing all the other bits and pieces on the bike in case I find any more problems. So I'm not in a rush to tape it up at the moment. There we go. Excrement. Right, so that can come down here. Oh, there's lots to go through. Okay, so now we can just take this again to the loom, and we're only going as far as the ignition coils, don't forget. Plenty of slack on there, it's following the blue, that's good. I think it's worked out not a bad job, to be honest. I reckon it's going to make a huge difference. It's going to allow us to really benefit from having those Dana coils on the bike. Ooh, we're not far off now. Right, so let's put a piece just before there, before our exposed joint. And I suppose if you wanted to revert back to standard configuration, you just unplug that and then extend that up to your coils. Done, basically. Very simple. Not that I'm doing that just in case it doesn't work, because I'm very confident that it will work, but you know, I don't like it when other people modify wiring and really don't stick to colour codes and stuff. I've done the best I can. And I'm hoping I've made a neat enough job to, you know, satisfy most. So that one goes down to the ignition. So I'm just going to tape that with all the ignition stuff. All that's going to get sized up once we get that new plug, don't forget, the new brown plug. I won't be getting that for a fair few weeks, I don't think. Sorry, Alan. Looks like the bike's going to be around for a bit longer yet. I was hoping to get it back to Alan, you know, when I go back to work middle of January, but it's not going to happen by the looks of it. Right, so we're now just going up that little outrigger branch, that little branch up to the coils. There we go, so that runs up to there, and this will then split into two to power each of the two coils. Remember, it's the the other side of the primary winding which is grounded. Right, so we can just cut that down now. It's probably a little bit too long, but we'll snip that off. And I'll just tuck that back through there, so it's basically where it needs to go. Just to, you know, again, just to remind me and keep everything sort of semi-organised. There we go. Now, obviously, I want to be able to test this. So, we've disconnected a few wires, so nothing's going to happen to start off with. So we'll reconnect those again. That's pretty manky, isn't it, that one? It'll do for now. That's not going to work, is it? Where's the flat screwdriver? Alright, we'll stick him back in there. See, I've done the hard bit today, getting all the loom done. Now, this one needs connecting to the positive. This is eventually going to go onto that nice new brown plug, but it hasn't, obviously it's not here yet. I often find that now I need to repeat things a few times through the video because a lot of people don't watch the entire video, which I find really weird. But it's probably because they're way too long, which is what I get told as well. Well, I think that one's in too far, so we'll just back him off a bit. There we go. Right, ignition's all plumbed up. That is going to be a feed to our coils. So if we basically just bear that back and put a test light on there, then we'll know if we've got a feed on it, won't we? See what we can find. Okay, if we plumb on, this is a pretty good little test light. It's got crocodile clips on it. We plumb that on there, like that, and then we just stick this one down to ground. Where's a good ground? Find a good ground. There we are, look, that'll do. I'll stick that on there. And now, if I connect the battery up, that should light up when I turn on the ignition. To wait and see, won't we? Who knows? Should do. That's the plan. Trying to get it in a good place for you. In fact, we'll connect both of the filaments, and they'll be even brighter, won't it? There we go. Right, we'll just chuck a 10 amp fuse in that fuse holder that we installed. We'll leave the cap open just in case, so we can see what's going on. Right, I've reinstalled RE55. Relay's all plumbed up. I've connected the solenoid relay, and I've put those earths back on the new one that feeds our relay on the trigger circuit and the original earth. None of the backlights are connected. That doesn't matter. Forgot what. Oh, that's the flasher relay. Doesn't matter. And we've got the stator is not connected at the moment. I think we're okay leaving that unplugged as well. So battery's plumbed in. Let's see if we get power to the coils. Well, here goes. I think we'll be good. Fingers crossed. Got no power. What's going on? I need to look further. Right, let's see what's happening. Test light onto ground. Let's just test that it's good. Can I? Well, we can just test it and see if it works. This should be permanent live. Let's have a look. Jeez. It is. Okay. And coming out, when the ignition's turned on, off, on, that's in the on position now. This should be live. Ah, it is. Excellent. Okay. So, our coil, this should be live in here. Which it is not. Oh, I know we don't have a neutral light because we haven't plugged in the neutral thingy, have we? Jeez. Man, this connector is pretty knackered, to be honest. So it's missing one there, missing one there. Okay. Let's see if that's going to help. Right. We've got, you can see this or not, we've got an oil light and a neutral light now. Kill switch is in the on position, so we should really have power at this one. We don't, and that's the problem. Okay, so that's the black with the white trace. So let's go back to the headlight and see if we've got power there. Right, black. Oh, hang on. Kill switch close. Oh, no wonder we've not plugged that back in, have we? So we need to find the earth for that. That would do it. There it is. Right, so that has to go back in there. Oh, that sounds better. Bit crappy connection there. That's one thing I forgot to plug back in, isn't it? Okay, so ignition back on. Okay, I heard a click now for that relay, which is good. This should now be power. And it is. Superb. But our light is not lit, which means there's no power coming back up to here. So let's work out why that's happening, or not happening, should I say. Okay, so have we got power? Ignition is on. Have we got power coming in to the load side of the circuits? That was terminal 30, wasn't it? Oh, are we on there? We are. Yes, we've got power there. So have we got... Oh, look! The wires come off. Let's just turn the ignition off first. Right, ignition is off. Let's pop that one back on again. It must have got knocked off at some point. In fact, that's quite loose, actually. Let's just fix that. Give him a little tweak. There we go. Because you wouldn't want that falling off while you're riding, would you? Because that's like going to stop the bike. There we go. Right, let's try again. Well, there you go. A few hours spent today on Alan's bike, getting it one step closer to going on the road. And I'm sort of trying to future-proof the bike because I want it to be reliable for the chap. And I don't want him to be struggling to get hold of, you know, another new ignition switch at some point in the future because all the contacts have burnt out. Now, I haven't forgotten, I've still got the kill switch on the handlebars to strip down and clean the contacts because that was another point of high resistance. But just using a simple relay, what was it, a 3076, that's the hell apart. And we're basically a standard 4-pin relay that can carry a decent amount of current with an integrated fuse, may I add, because that just cuts down on other issues. You know, you've got one less thing kicking around in there to try and tuck away when you put the side cover back on. That new circuit is going to deliver as much voltage, power, amps, call it what you like, to those ignition coils, you know, as possible, really. You know, as it was previously, everything was a bit of a compromise in that circuit, and it wasn't going to last, and it's proved that already. So with a little bit of time, bit of wire, a few connectors, what I had kicking around, to be fair, and, you know, a relay that cost, I don't know, 20 bucks. Wasn't a lot. Bit of wire that I bought in. You know, we've really sort of given the bike the best opportunity to have a decent spark during crank, because it's all about that cold start. You know, when the engine's cold, there's a lot more friction in, you know, between the parts. There's a bigger volt drop on the starter motor. It pulls the battery voltage down. Of course, you end up with a weak spark during crank, and you don't want that. That's the least time you want a weak spark. You need the strongest possible spark to start a cold engine, especially on a cold, wet, rainy day. And there are lots and lots and lots of wiring problems on this bike, believe me. So I've got to continuously work my way through it. Some of it will be done to camera, some of it won't, because I can't bore you too much with wiring, can I? Anyway, we've reached the end of this video. We've done what we set out to do, and that was to basically tidy up the original circuit and fit a new circuit with a relay to provide direct feed to the ignition primary circuit. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it informative. I certainly enjoyed doing it, and yeah, bit of a twist in the tail when that little plug had come off at the end, the connector, but it's all fixed now. Alright crew, well, why not subscribe to the channel, and then you won't miss out on any of the future videos about this project, the DR200 that I'm doing with Toolgirl Holly at the moment, or any of the future other videos. There's about 550 videos already on the channel, so if I don't upload one 1 week, don't panic, it's because I'm working away that week. And you can go through the archive of all the old videos. You'll find a much younger Andy Mechanic in there. I'm sure you will. Where else will you find me? Well, you'll also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course there's the Patreon page as well. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do that. Just register, and if you want to donate, you can do. There's lots of photos and a few videos to download from Patreon as well, and you can donate towards future projects on there. If you'd rather just do a one-off donation, you can do that through PayPal, and well, just use the andymechanic.live.co.uk address. Again, it's in the description for you. Okay crew, well, that's it from me today. I've got a, God, it's 25 to 4. I came out here at 9 o'clock this morning. Jeez, I've got to head off and have some food. I'm starving. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Over and out. And we get the flick up again. Oh. Yes.